The old Hollowbrook Asylum stood at the edge of a desolate town, its imposing facade shrouded in a perpetual mist. The building's windows were like vacant eyes, staring out at a world that had long forgotten its existence. This is the story of a chilling exploration that unraveled the mysteries hidden within its decaying walls. It was a moonless night when a group of friends, led by Sarah, decided to venture into the abandoned asylum. The air was thick with an eerie stillness, and the only sound that accompanied their footsteps was the distant howling of the wind. The asylum's reputation for being haunted by the souls of its former patients did little to deter their curiosity. As they entered the asylum's grand foyer, their flashlights illuminated the faded remnants of what was once a bustling reception area. The walls were adorned with peeling wallpaper, and the scent of dampness permeated the air. Sarah's heart raced, a mixture of excitement and trepidation. They ventured deeper into the asylum's labyrinthine corridors, their footsteps echoing through the silence. The flickering light cast eerie shadows along the walls, and the atmosphere seemed to thicken as they explored. Sarah's friends exchanged nervous glances, but their determination to uncover the asylum's secrets remained unshaken. In one of the rooms, they discovered old patient records strewn across the floor. The ink faded and the paper yellowed with age. Sarah's curiosity got the better of her, and she picked up a record, her flashlight casting a ghostly glow on the page. The name Elizabeth Morgan caught her eye, along with a note that mentioned persistent hallucinations. As they continued their exploration, a faint whisper seemed to carry through the air. Sarah turned toward the source of the sound, her heart racing. It was as if the asylum itself was trying to communicate with them, its past echoing through the corridors. They entered what appeared to be a former patient's room, its walls covered in cryptic drawings. The air grew colder, and Sarah's breath formed misty clouds as she glanced around. Suddenly, a door at the far end of the room swung open with a creak, revealing a hidden passageway. Intrigued and apprehensive, they ventured down the passageway, their flashlights cutting through the darkness. The air grew thicker, and an oppressive energy seemed to surround them. The walls were covered in more drawings, these ones more intricate and unsettling. As they reached the end of the passageway, they entered a room that seemed frozen in time. Medical equipment lay abandoned, and a solitary wheelchair sat near a broken window. Sarah's heart sank as she realized the significance of the room. It must have been where the most vulnerable patients were kept. Suddenly, the air grew frigid, and Sarah's flashlight flickered. In the corner of the room, a figure materialized. It was an ethereal form, its features indistinct yet hauntingly familiar. The figure's voice was a whisper that seemed to resonate within Sarah's mind. "Help me remember. The truth must be known." Fear and empathy tugged at Sarah's heart as she listened to the figure's plea. She felt an inexplicable connection, as if the asylum's past was intertwining with her own. The figure introduced itself as Elizabeth Morgan, and it recounted a tale of suffering, mistreatment, and a hidden truth that had been buried within the asylum's walls. Elizabeth had been a patient at Hollowbrook Asylum, subjected to cruel experiments and confinement. She spoke of others who had suffered alongside her, their lives forgotten by the world. She pleaded with Sarah to uncover the asylum's dark history and reveal the atrocities that had taken place. Moved by Elizabeth's story, Sarah and her friends began to research the asylum's past. They delved into archives and interviewed former staff members. They uncovered a disturbing pattern of abuse and neglect, a history that had been intentionally suppressed. Through their efforts, they pieced together a narrative that painted a chilling portrait of Hollowbrook Asylum's darkest secrets. The asylum had been a place of torment for its patients, a facade of care masking the horrors that transpired within its walls. Months later, as Sarah looked at the now demolished Hollowbrook Asylum from a distance, she couldn't help but reflect on the journey they had undertaken. Elizabeth's story had brought them face to face with the asylum's haunting past, a reminder that the echoes of suffering can persist long after a building's physical form has vanished. Hollowbrook Asylum may have crumbled into ruins, but its legacy lived on in the hearts of those who dared to uncover its truth. And in Elizabeth's release, the asylum's tormented souls found a semblance of closure, their voices finally heard after years of silence. It was a misty autumn evening when a chilling wind swept through the desolate grounds of Greyhaven Sanatorium. The imposing structure loomed over the landscape, its windows like empty eyes staring into the void. This is the tale of an exploration that unearthed the haunted history lurking within its abandoned halls. The news of Greyhaven's dark reputation had always piqued Daniel's curiosity. Accompanied by his closest friends, he arrived at the sanatorium with a mixture of excitement and trepidation. The moon hung low in the sky, casting an eerie glow on the decaying facade. As they stepped inside, the air grew heavy with anticipation. Their footsteps echoed through the corridor as they navigated the labyrinthine layout of the sanatorium. The flickering light of their flashlights cast elongated shadows on the cracked walls, creating an otherworldly dance. Daniel's heart raced, the palpable sense of history and mystery enveloping him. In the common area, they found old, tattered furniture scattered around, a haunting reminder of the lives that once inhabited these spaces. As they explored further, whispers seemed to seep from the walls, carried by the chill that hung in the air. Daniel's friends exchanged nervous glances, but their curiosity only deepened. They entered a room that appeared to be a former patient's chamber. The walls were adorned with faded drawings and scribbles that seemed to tell stories of pain and isolation. As Daniel's flashlight swept across the room, a glint caught his eye, a small, worn journal resting on a dusty bedside table. Curiosity getting the better of him, Daniel picked up the journal and began to read its contents. The pages were filled with the disjointed thoughts and ramblings of a former patient named Sarah. Her words spoke of torment, of shadows that whispered to her from the corners of her mind. As they ventured deeper into the sanatorium, a sensation of being watched intensified. The echoes of their footsteps seemed to meld with distant murmurs, creating an unsettling symphony. Daniel's heart raced, a mixture of fear and fascination propelling him forward. In a hallway that seemed frozen in time, they stumbled upon a door that stood slightly ajar. As they pushed it open, a wave of cold air greeted them, and the room beyond was plunged into darkness. Daniel's flashlight revealed an empty room, save for an old rusted gurney that stood in the center. As they stepped further into the room, the door swung shut behind them with a resounding thud. Panic surged through Daniel's veins as he tried to open the door, but it remained firmly closed. His friends called out in alarm, their voices echoing through the silence. Suddenly the air grew still, and a faint whisper seemed to fill the room. It was a voice that seemed to come from all directions, its words barely audible yet laden with a haunting urgency. Daniel's heart raced as he realized they were not alone. In the dim light, a figure materialized before them, its form flickering like a spectral apparition. The figure's eyes held a mixture of sadness and longing as it extended a hand toward Daniel. Its voice was a chilling whisper that seemed to resonate within his mind. "Help us remember. The truth must be revealed." Fear and empathy tugged at Daniel's heart as he listened to the figure's plea. It introduced itself as Sarah, the same name from the journal. She recounted a tale of suffering, experimentation, and a hidden secret that had been buried within the sanatorium's walls. Sarah had been a patient at Greyhaven, subjected to inhumane treatments and forgotten by the outside world. She spoke of others who had suffered alongside her, their stories erased from history. She begged Daniel to uncover the truth, to give voice to those who had been silenced. Determined to unravel the mystery, Daniel and his friends began to research the sanatorium's history. They delved into old records and interviewed locals who still remembered the whispers of the past. Slowly, they pieced together a narrative of neglect, abuse, and the horrors that had transpired within Greyhaven's walls. Through their efforts, they managed to bring attention to the forgotten souls of Greyhaven Sanatorium. A documentary was created, shedding light on the dark history of the institution and giving a voice to those who had long been silenced. Years later, as Daniel stood before the now restored Greyhaven Sanatorium, he couldn't help but reflect on the journey he had embarked upon. Sarah's story had brought him face to face with the sanatorium's haunted past, a reminder that the echoes of suffering can persist even when the building itself has been rejuvenated. Greyhaven Sanatorium may have undergone a transformation, but its legacy lived on in the hearts of those who dared to uncover its truth. And in Sarah's release, the sanatorium's tormented souls found a semblance of closure, their whispers finally heard after decades of silence. Amidst the quiet outskirts of a forgotten town, the dilapidated Willowbrook Sanitarium stood as a haunting sentinel of a bygone era. Its weathered facade and broken windows told tales of forgotten patients and lost dreams. This is the story of a curious journey that peeled back the layers of time to reveal the chilling secrets locked within its forsaken walls. One mist-laden evening, a group of intrepid souls led by Alex gathered in front of the looming Willowbrook Sanitarium. The atmosphere was heavy with anticipation, and the moon's faint glow cast an eerie sheen upon the building's abandoned exterior. As they crossed the threshold, the air seemed to change, laden with the weight of memories. Their footsteps echoed through the dimly lit corridors, and the flickering light of their flashlights cast unsettling shadows on the peeling wallpaper. Alex's heart raced with a mixture of excitement and unease, the enigmatic history of the place beckoning to be uncovered. In the common area, they found discarded remnants of furniture and discarded medical equipment, remnants of a time when this place was alive with activity. As they ventured deeper, an otherworldly hush seemed to envelop them, broken only by the distant sound of wind whistling through broken windows. Alex's friends exchanged nervous glances, but their determination to uncover the sanitarium's mysteries remained steadfast. One room in particular caught their attention, a room with walls adorned with eerie paintings and cryptic symbols. As their flashlights danced across the room, a reflection glimmered on the floor, a tarnished key, its presence an invitation to unlock forgotten doors. As their exploration continued, whispers of the past seemed to float on the wind. Faint echoes of voices and the soft shuffling of footsteps merged with the creaks of the building. Alex's heart quickened as the hospital's history seemed to come alive around them, an ethereal chorus of forgotten souls. In a corridor lined with closed doors, they discovered one that stood slightly ajar, inviting them to peer inside. The room was dimly lit by the faint glow of the moon, revealing a rusted hospital bed and an ancient-looking wheelchair. The air grew colder, and a sense of unease settled upon them. As they approached the bed, their flashlights flickered, casting a brief but piercing beam of light upon a faded photograph resting on the nightstand. The image depicted a group of patients and nurses, their smiles a stark contrast to the room's eerie ambience. Alex's heart sank, sensing a connection to the room's somber energy. Suddenly the air grew still and an icy breath seemed to sweep through the room. A whisper, barely audible yet laden with melancholy, echoed through the silence. The room's shadows coalesced, forming a spectral figure that stood before them, its presence both ethereal and mournful. The figure's eyes held a profound sadness as it extended a translucent hand towards Alex. Its voice was a haunting murmur that seemed to reverberate within Alex's mind. "Remember, our stories must be told." As Alex listened, the figure introduced itself as Isabella, a former nurse who had once cared for patients within the sanitarium's walls. Her voice carried fragments of pain and a longing for the truth to be unveiled. Isabella spoke of the lives that had been confined within these walls, of the patients who had suffered in silence, and the untold tales that had been silenced by time. She implored Alex to uncover the hidden history, to give voice to the forgotten, and grant them a semblance of closure. Driven by a sense of empathy and a desire to honor the past, Alex and the group delved into researching the sanitarium's history. They combed through old records, interviewed descendants of former staff and patients, and pieced together the stories that had long been confined to whispers. Months later, as Alex stood before the now empty Willowbrook Sanitarium, a feeling of somber accomplishment washed over them. Isabella's story had brought them face to face with the sanitarium's haunted past, a reminder that the echoes of history can persist long after the walls have crumbled. Though the sanitarium had fallen into disrepair, its legacy lived on through the hearts of those who dared to unveil its truth. And in Isabella's release, the hospital's tormented spirits found a semblance of closure, their stories finally heard after decades of silence. The moon cast a gentle glow upon the ruins, and a breeze carried a sense of release as if the sanitarium itself exhaled, letting go of the secrets it had harbored for so long.